Hey, how about it, race fans? Richard out on motorsportsreport.net coming at you with one of my richest ramblings. Typically, I use these little videos to talk about dirt late models, and that kind of thing. But they're going to do a little NASCAR as NASCAR transitions from kind of its strange opening set of races where they have raced on two of the big speedway tracks at Daytona and Atlanta, and then went right to a road course, a Circuit of the Americas. Now we're going to Phoenix. And then after Phoenix, got Vegas and Miami Homestead coming up after that. But one of the things I wanted to talk about today, I thought it was interesting. My son and I were at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and at the end, they have all the drivers come out there on pit road to kind of serve as a bullpen so you can go ask questions and all that. And one of the things I noticed was that the drivers kind of lined up to lecture Carson Hocevar about his driving style and some of the things he had done that they didn't like. And two of those drivers are Ross Chastain and Austin Cindric. And if you watched and paid attention to this past weekend at COTA, those two drivers didn't take very long to do exactly what they were lecturing Hocevar about. Ross Chastain spun Chase Elliott out. That was a quarter of a mile into the race. He made a ridiculous move on the inside going 5 wide. There wasn't any possible chance he was going to make that turn. Then hits Chase Elliott, takes him out, winds up, now Chase eventually rebounded, but, messed up the rear end of the car and all that. Just a completely crazy move. And that's exactly the type of thing he was saying about Hocevar, that you're making these ridiculous, reckless moves. And that was exactly what he did. Then Cindric was another guy who was complaining. Now, he wasn't complaining about Hocevar. He was complaining about Kyle Larson. He said that late in the race at Atlanta that Larson had, quote unquote, used him up as they were racing for the lead. And that's probably true. He probably did. Larson kind of known for putting you in a position where you have to lift, and Cindric chose not to lift. But even with that criticism of Larson, driving in such a way, an aggressive way like that, Cindric found himself in a sort of similar position to use somebody up in the early laps at COTA, where Ty Dillon had kind of forced him high there, and he just comes off the turn going down the main straightaway, and as NASCAR called it, right hooked. Ty Dillon sent him into the wall. That's just announced today. It's going to cost him a big fine and 50 points after having done that. So interesting that two guys who were complaining about how others were driving wound up doing almost the same thing just a very few days later. It's not like they made it halfway through the season before they did it. They made it like 7 days before they were doing that kind of thing. Another thing that I took from the race at COTA was, going in, Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG, and rightfully so. I think people were almost expecting him to win. It was almost like as a guarantee, and now I think we see SVG is no guarantee when it comes to the road courses. There are, I believe, 5 road course races before the playoffs, so you would think, he'll surely win one of those, and if he wins one of those, it'd be playoff eligible. One thing people don't take into account is these NASCAR drivers have gotten very good on road courses. They go out and they find places to race to perfect the craft, and because NASCAR's now incorporated so many road courses onto the schedule, if you want to be a top flight NASCAR driver, you've got to be good on road courses, as many of them as are on the schedule. And of course, there's the Roval road course, which is in the playoffs. So being good on that course can help you advance. So I believe if I had to make a prediction one way or the other, I would say Shane Van Gisbergen will win one of the road course races, but leading into the playoffs. But we saw on Sunday at COTA that it's not a guarantee that he will. He ran very well at times and then just sort of faded there at the end. I think he didn't like the tires that were on his car, but nonetheless, he didn't win. And everybody, I think, thought he would. And something else that really struck me as interesting about this race, did I hear correctly? Were people actually rooting for Kyle Busch? The guy who has been NASCAR's villain for couple of decades now. And people were cheering him on there as he was leading in those late laps and trying to hold off the likes of Christopher Bell and William Byron, and guys like that. So it's crazy how that seems to happen. Guys who were villains at one point in their careers, they get older. People, I think, start to respect what they've done. And you can't not respect what Kyle Busch has accomplished. He's one of the NASCAR's all-time greats, a surefire Hall of Famer. So I think people kind of take a different perspective of a guy like him. Darrell Waltrip kind of came the same way. Darrell Waltrip was not a particularly fan favorite, but then as he got older, I think people kind of started rooting for him, and wishing him well and that kind of thing as he moved up in years. So Kyle Busch, I believe, is the same way, but it just seems so odd to have people rooting for Kyle Busch when the opposite has been true so much. And I said we would be talking about Phoenix, but just quickly on Phoenix. Racing Phoenix, now the fourth race of the season. Of course, it's going to be the championship deciding race at the end of the year. Is this race really an indicator of championships? I'm not so sure it is. It's early in the year. They've done some things with tires in the past, and that kind of stuff. And I'm not so sure that I would say, well, if you win at Phoenix, if you can get in the Final Four, you're probably going to win the championship. I don't see it that way. It's early in the year that, the weather's going to be different than it will be in the fall. There's, who knows what rule changes might happen. A lot of people say, they surely won't change the rules. Come on, folks, this is NASCAR. They change the rules on a weekly basis. So there's no telling what all kinds of things could happen. And then finally, I want to wrap it up. Is Christopher Bell unstoppable? Maybe it's that he's getting to race on dirt, and that's lifted his spirits so much so that he's now become Kyle Larson in 2021. Just basically unstoppable. That said, how many times have we seen it where a guy takes off in the first 3, 4, 5 races of the year, really makes a splash, really looks good, and then sort of just kind of fades as the season goes on. So with that said, in the piece that Cody Allen, Austin Allen, and I did where we made our NASCAR predictions, I predicted William Byron, and I'm not stepping away from that prediction. Byron's won the Daytona 500 already this year for the second year in a row. He was right there at COTA running well. But now he's also a guy who has been one of those who's flashed early and then sort of faded late. But I think, last year he did make the championship 4. So this year I'm going to stick with my pick, even though Bell looks awfully good right now. But anyway, that's just some random thoughts I had coming out of COTA and going toward Phoenix. This is Richard Allen of motorsportsreport.net, and I hope I will see you at the track.